All aboard the choo-choo train. All aboard the choo-choo train. All aboard the choo-choo train. All aboard. All aboard. Choo-choo. Choo-choo Soul with Genevieve. Does anyone fucking remember that?
It's the Pesto Pod, the Pesto Pod, the Pesto Pod.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pesto Pod. I had a pretty good week. I hope your week was good as well. I started last week. I went to a play called All Nighter. It's an off-Broadway play, and it had some actors that I recognized. There was Katherine Gallagher, Alia Chanel Scott from Sex Lives of College Girls, Julia Lester, who was in the revival of Into the Woods. It was a great cast, and it was so good. Such a good show. I got invited to go, and there was an after party, so I was nervous because you know how I get at these things. Anxiety City, one-way ticket, population me. But it was such a good show. I feel like it's very hard to see a lot of contemporary plays or shows or stuff like that is about high schoolers or college kids, because I find it can be very cringy. Euphoria, they're always like, do you guys want to go do some blow and then suck each other's cocks? And that's not how people talk. Or maybe it is, and I was just a very lame high schooler. That is also very possible. But no, I felt like the conversations, the dialogue in this play was very genuine. I enjoyed every character. I thought they all had likable qualities. They all had flaws. It was so good. It was the concept of the play is there's these 5 college girls. They're a group of friends, and they're pulling their last all-nighter of college. It's a week before they graduate, and they're studying for finals, and truths get revealed, and relationships are heightened. It was so great. And then went to the after party. I went with my friend Molly Russo, who is also an influencer. You may or may not know her. She's hilarious. You should check her out. She was such a good person to bring to this, because she just is equally as approachable, I guess, as me. She approachable toward other people. She just went up to people, struck up conversations, made friends. She knew a few people, so that took some of the burden off me. I don't have to worry about. I don't going on things with people and I have to be oh, you're not going to know anyone, so I have to facilitate this. But that was not the case at all. She was great. And the after party was at this Mediterranean restaurant with this delicious lamb tartlet. Oh, mama, it was so good. We made some friends, had some laughs, had a great time. And then who shows up at the after party? Why, it's the producer of the play, Ben Platt, also known as Benji from Pitch Perfect, and Evan Hansen himself. I was a theater kid. This man shaped a good chunk of my personality. And I knew I wanted to say something. I'm very weird with my celebrity encounters, but I have a really good strategy when I encounter the occasional celeb. And that is, I just go up, approach, and I go, hey, really big fan. Big fan. Great work. It's great. Because if they are in a place where they want to talk to a random girl that just approached them, they will make that known. And they'll be like, oh, thank you so much. What's your name? What do you do? Do you live here? Whatever. And if not, they'll go, thank you so much. And they'll go on their merry way. And either way, you had a positive reaction. I mean, who doesn't like being told good job? I love it, frankly. So that's my strategy. But I did really want to talk to Ben Platt. I built up a lot of courage. He was with his family because they were coming to see the show. So I waited until, it was a good moment where he was not in the middle of talking to anyone and was kind of on the outside. And on the outside, always looking in, will I ever be more than I've always been? So then I went up to him and I was like, hey, really big fan. And I said, I saw you in Dear Evan Hansen when I was looking for colleges, and now I live in New York City. So full circle. And I said, hi, I said my name is Julia. So I introduced myself. And he was like, oh, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And then he immediately posed for a picture with me. I did not ask for a photo. So it was very clear that he's very used to this and he does this all day. But honestly, that was a perfect situation for me because I didn't want to bother him. I really wanted a photo, and it was perfect. And he was so nice. And then I was like, this play was incredible. You did like this was such a fantastic show. And he was like, thank you so much. He was really excited. So I think he likes being recognized for works that are not the most popular things he's done, which I'm sure is the case for a lot of celebrities. He was very nice. I did feel weird. I feel weird asking people for pictures. I don't want to ever be disrespectful, but I'm really glad I got one. So Ben Platt, if you're out there, thank you for humoring my little broken Broadway soul. And it ended up being a great night. I've had a very theater-centric week because the next day I went and saw The Lion King. It was so good. Love The Lion King. I got free tickets to that as well. I have decided I don't love being in theaters with children. Ever. I know that they are children. I know that they were just squelched out of the ute. But if they could like have some theater etiquette, I'd really appreciate it. Like maybe let's not speak during the play. Maybe let's not yell. You know, there were kids behind me. And every single time something would happen in the show, they'd be like, who is that? What are they doing? What are they saying? And the parents were not like, shh, don't talk during the play. They were just answering their questions. I wanted to jump back there and say, how about we watch the fucking production and maybe we'll figure out what's going to happen. And the kids were probably like 6, too old to be acting like that. I have very little experience with what children are like, but man, I was so annoyed. I know it's The Lion King. I know. I hear you. I see you. I stand with you. It was just annoying. And also, I mean, Lion King, I feel like no one goes to Lion King for like the stellar like talent. You go for the sets and the costumes, right? Obviously, not saying the cast isn't talented. They were amazing. And it was a great show. But like you go for the sets and the costumes. And that did not disappoint. So, classic, typical Lion King experience. Had myself a great time. Then I had a friend from home visiting for the weekend. She wasn't staying with me. She was staying with another friend in Brooklyn. And the group of us like did a lot this weekend. And it was so fun. On Friday, we went to a dinner party that another friend was hosting. And he made a ham. I ate a whole fucking ham. And it was delicious. It was the best ham I've ever had in my life. And we went to a bunch of Irish pubs this weekend. We did some shopping. We ate great food. It was so fun. I had a great weekend. I did, however, this weekend have a tumultuous relationship with the New York City subway system because I was supposed to meet my friends at McSorley's, which is a pub downtown, and what should have taken me less than 30 minutes took me probably closer to an hour because I was trapped underground with no service, trying not to puke and fart and jizz because that was my immediate reaction. And that'll happen once in a while in this city. That's just the way the subway be subbing. And I decided what a better time to talk about the New York City subway because it's just so interesting. You would actually think by hearing me talk and knowing my personality that I would be like obsessed with transit systems in a weird way. But that's not the case. I really didn't know much about the New York City subway, and so I decided to do some research just for yay. Let me tell you, the New York City subway was invented by a man named John Subway, and he had a huge schlong, massive schlong, giant balls, and he also had a lot of pet rats, like thousands of them. And he was living in his studio apartment, and one day he was like, there's not enough room for me and my big schlong and all these rats. So I'm going to build them a home. And he built the New York City subway system, and all his rats got to live happily ever after. He sadly passed away because he was hit by a subway, which is the way he always said he wanted to go. And then per his wishes, he was laid to rest in the 42nd Street Bryant Park subway station, and his flesh was consumed by the very rats that he raised from birth. So a really sweet full circle moment. I also did research on the actual New York City subway system. Apparently, the first line was built in 1870. It was like one car, one line, two stops kind of thing, and it was a prototype sort of shtick. And it was more so like viewed as a attraction rather than an actual mode of transportation. And it only lasted for 3 years. The dude who built it, he wanted to expand it, but if you know anything about New York City history, during the late 1800s in New York City, the city was run by Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed. Boss Tweed. Let me tell you something. If I'm going to be in charge of a corrupt political machine, my name better be fucking Boss Tweed. That's metal as fuck. I don't really know much about Tammany Hall, like what they actually did, because I took a New York City history class in college because I thought it'd be so interesting. I love history and I love New York City, and I went, and my professor was a dud from the mud in Spud. He was so fucking boring, and his voice was so quiet. He had the softest voice. So he'd be teaching and he'd be like, "Did anyone have any questions about the reading last night?" "What, bro? Speak up." It was especially annoying when he took attendance, and he'd be like, and I'd be like, "Man, I fucking hope he said Julia, because I'm going to raise my hand." Like, oh, he sucked. But yeah, Tammany Hall, some corrupt shit was going on in New York City. They wouldn't give my guy funding to expand Arooski, his little train. So that pooped. But in 1888, there was a big old blizzard, a big old blizzy McGlizzy, and everyone was like, "Oh, like the trains are shut down and the roads are shut down, and I really wish we had an underground train right now." And the first guy who built the train was probably like, and they started construction for the New York City subway system, and it opened in 1904. And it was originally only 28 stations when it opened, which is interesting. And now it's like 400 something, which is crazy. And I heard that and I was like, that cannot be correct. That number cannot be correct. It's too high. But I looked it up, and I guess like stations that we know them are considered like station complexes, and then the actual like train stops are the individual stations. So like the Times Square subway station complex has like the 1 station, the 2 station, the 3 station, the N, the Q, whatever. So that's how they're counting that, which I was like, oh, okay, cheating a little, but I guess not, because that's all their own like tracks. Blah, 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 whatever. Fun fact though, to ride the subway the day it opened, it cost a nickel, 5 cents, and I guess with like modern inflation and economy and all that the equivalent of that in today's time is actually like $2.50. So we are kind of paying the same as it always was. Somehow. I don't know how all that works. If someone's like in finance and you want to call in, please do. But yeah, so they built the Subarooski, and it got some good use, and then they expanded it a shit ton. Most of the newest stations, or the newer stations, were built between when it opened in 1940, and then I guess the city got like a whole bunch of debt, and there have only been 30 something stations added since 1940. So there she blows. And she's just the good old Subarooski. In 1980, there was like super crazy crime rates in New York, and everyone was like fleeing and like thought New York was a hellscape. "How could you ever think that?" she asked. But that's when subway usage declined the most, crime went up, and there was a big increase in the homeless population that was living in the subway tracks, which bears henceforth the myth of the mole people. Do y'all know about the fucking mole people? Because I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you straight into your corneas. The mole people. Many people think it's a legend, and while it is like very much like exaggerated and superstitified, which is a term I have just coined, they are real, because mole people just refers to homeless people who live underground. And people do that in the subway tracks. It's crazy. There's a lot of like abandoned tracks and whatever that people have settled into. Now, the like exaggerated, like mystified version of the mole people that I have always heard is that it's these people that live underground and they haven't come up in like 20 years, and their eyes have adjusted to the darkness. They can see in the dark, and they're sensitive to the light. So if they come out, they don't get to come out. And when they come out, they go, ah, the light. I guess that's not real. Bummer. It'd make a great movie or book. I'm sure it already has. But there are people that live underground. In the 80s, it was really common. There was something called the Freedom Tunnel, which was an abandoned Amtrak track. And a big encampment sprung up there. There was probably 100 people living in this little shanty town, they're called. And it was a whole ass society. There was community, there were leaders, there was exchange of goods and products. That's insane. And then Amtrak eventually started using that track again, and all those people got kicked out, which is so sad. But there's still a lot of graffiti that remains from the Freedom Tunnel encampments. So that's interesting. And there's just a lot of graffiti in general because it's become kind of like a flex, especially for urban explorers or people who go into sewers and shit willingly, ? But supposedly it's you get mad you get what am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say. Creds if you can do these graffiti pieces in very dangerous spots. So that's a thing. Apparently police have really cracked down on it. I know there's not encampments quite like there used to be, but there are definitely people living in the subway station, especially in the winter, which is so sad, but I mean, it makes sense. It's shelter. And I guess the subway system cleaned up a little bit after the 80s, and now we got the good old Subi-Ubi. I didn't hear of any instance in which the whole system has ever been shut down. I know that stations and districts and stuff will be shut down during emergencies. I read that in 9/11, all of lower Manhattan was stopped, but the upper Manhattan kept running, which is crazy. And some stations got completely destroyed during 9/11. In fact, most of them were rebuilt within the year, but Cortlandt Street subway station was finished being rebuilt from 9/11 in 2018. Isn't that crazy? Almost 20 years later. So it really took some damage. And Hurricane Sandy stopped some subway action from going down. I know they flooded, which, you know what? Every fucking time it rains in the city, I feel my subway station floods. I don't know if it's, they were built in 1904, so they really got to figure that out, because every time it's raining and I go down the subway station, I go, oh, I'm ankle deep in fucking swamp water from the city, and it's gnarly. But that's the subway, and it's home to my favorite creature, the rat, as it scurries around looking for cheese to make into a delicious French ratatouille. There's COVID affected the subway ridership, obviously, drastic decline, but the crime rate is really high right now. It's the highest it's been since the 80s, which is crazy. Which makes sense. I keep seeing stories in the news about people getting pushed. I saw something earlier this year about someone being set on fire in a fucking subway car. That is terrifying. Don't do that to me, please. And what else about the subway do I have to say? Everyone has a subway story, you know? And there's subway etiquette. If you're not from around here, I'll tell you. You get up for old people or people with kids, and you don't lean your whole fucking body on the pole so that no one else can hold on to it. And you don't stand in front of the door, blocking the door. You wait until people get off till you get on. You know? There's rules. But my craziest subway story is probably, I was a freshman in college, and it was my first time ever taking the subway at night alone. So I was already on edge, and I was taking the Times Square shuttle to Grand Central, the S, if you will. And I get on, and then this guy gets on who was obviously suffering from some sort of drug addiction. He had he was really, really thin and pale and just so out of it. And he was doing the Fenty fold, which I've just heard about because I've started watching Intervention. Apparently, if you're addicted to fentanyl, you fall forward and totally nod off. It's so freaky to watch. But this guy was doing that. And I guess another symptom of addiction to hard drugs is sometimes you can get these lesions, apparently. So that's what I think was going on with this guy's leg. This guy had a gaping hole in his leg, and it was just bleeding out on the platform and then onto the train. And he was kind of just like talking to himself. He didn't seem like he was in pain, but there's just like blood everywhere. When I first saw the guy, I thought he had a gunshot wound to his leg, but he was just really out of it. And people were like freaking out. People were like leaving the train because I mean he's bleeding all over, and he was very like reactive. And people told the conductor. Conductor got the cops. The cops like took him out, which was very sad and scary. But my 18-year-old ass, I was like, where have I just moved to? And now I'm like, that's a typical Tuesday for me. That's how the sausage gets made around these parts, you know? Nothing phases me no more. I do also have, I was one time, this is like semi-recently, it's like within the last like year or two. I was on the train at night by myself, and there was a guy across from me, and he just reaches his hands down his pants and starts jerking off. And I was looking around. There was like other people on the train, and I was looking around. I was like, anyone clocking this man committing a lewd act at the function? No? Okay. And I just put my headphones in and acted unbothered while my guy fully climaxed. And a lot of people would say, wow, that's very violating. Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Am I right? Hey, I'm walking here with a bagel and a New York slice. Taxi, take me to the city hall. You know? Oh, the subway. It's a love-hate relationship. It really is. I love taking the subway because I get really motion sick. So I will take the train over a car, an Uber, any day of the week. And I've been really into the bus lately, actually. There is a bus that goes from LaGuardia to my apartment, and it is the sexiest motherfucker that's ever lived. That's kind of all I got. That was a little history of the New York City subway. It's really freaky if you think about it. Like that there's a whole fucking network of tunnels under Manhattan. What if it collapses? You know? What's keeping it up? And also, what do we do when we sink? You know? I don't like when I have to ride a subway that goes under the river. Oh, no. No. My ears pop. I start to think about every decision I've ever made in my life. But other than that, I love the train. Take it every day. And I don't know. You just gotta be alert, I guess. There are some kooky people on there, but you know what you gotta do? You gotta stand back so you can't get pushed. You gotta see something, say something, and you gotta be unbothered. That's just how it is in these parts. See something, say something. Speaking of, I see my kitchen through the doorway, and I'm going to say that I would like a sandwich. And that's what I'm gonna go get. I'm gonna take the downtown sandwich line. I'm gonna transfer at 34th straight to Sandwichville. Okay, I gotta go eat something. Have a good week, everybody.